Hey guys, Christine here. Today we're going to be working on our drop downs for our tag filters on our form. We want the options to come directly from the sheet, and the tricky part is that when the options on the sheet changes, we want the options in the form to also change automatically. All right, without further ado, let's get into it. First, we're going to go into our code.gs file and create a new function. This function will pull a list of tags from our spreadsheet, specifically from the settings sheet. So let's start by typing const get tags equals parentheses arrow sign curly braces. Now press enter to go into the curly braces. Inside of this function, we'll give a reference to the sheet that holds our tag values. Let's store that in a variable called tags. So let's type out const tags equals spreadsheet app dot get active spreadsheet parentheses dot get sheet by name parentheses quote settings. So let's break down what we're doing here. Spreadsheet app dot get active spreadsheet grabs your current spreadsheet, and then get sheet by name parentheses settings looks for sheet name settings. Now we need to grab the column where our tags are listed. In my case, that's column B, and I want to skip the first row since that's usually the header. So we'll grab everything from B2 downwards. Let's create another variable for the values. Const data equals tags dot get range parentheses quotes B2 colon B dot get values parentheses. This pulls everything in column B starting from row 2 and gives it to us as an array. Unfortunately, this array isn't flat. If we were to do some console logs and then run the function, we can see what it looks like, and we see that each value is in its own little array inside of the main array. We need to flatten the structure into a simple list. So at the end of the get values parentheses line, let's chain on a dot flat parentheses. Now the data becomes a simple list with no more nested arrays. But we still have another problem. Some of those values might be blank, and we're getting a lot of blank values in our console log. So let's remove anything that's empty. Chain on one more method, dot filter. And it's going to look like this. Dot filter parentheses I, arrow, I, exclamation mark, 2 equal signs, and then blank string. So let's explain this a little bit. Filter loops through each item. I, exclamation, equal, equal, empty quotes says only keep the ones that are not empty strings. Perfect. Now we just need to return that list from our function so it can be used elsewhere. On the next line, all we need to do is type return data. And that's it. We now have a function that gives us a clean list of tags from our spreadsheets. Now that we've built our get tags function in AppScripts, let's go back into our HTML file so we can add the dropdown to the form and connect it to the data that we're pulling from the spreadsheet. First, let's add the dropdown element itself. Find the place in your form right below the rating input. Here we're going to add 2 new lines, one for the label and one for the dropdown. So let's start with the label. Type an opening label tag, tags, and then the closing label tag. Right underneath it, let's write the select tag. This is what gives us the dropdown. Type a select tag with an ID equal to, quote, tag dropdown, and a name equal to, quote, tag. On the next line, let's add a default option. This is what users will see while the real options are loading. Type an opening option tag with a value equal to an empty string, and then loading ... and then close out that option tag. Now we close the select tag. Let's take a pause and look at what we've just done. The ID equals tag dropdown is what we'll use to reference this element in JavaScript. The name equals tag is what will be sent when the form is submitted. And the option we just added is a placeholder to show while the real data is loading. Now scroll down to the bottom of your HTML file where your script tag is. We're going to write a small block of JavaScript that runs when the form is opened and loads our dropdown options from the spreadsheet. First, we need to add an event listener that waits for the page to load. So let's type out window dot add event listener parentheses quote load comma parentheses arrow curly braces. Inside of the curly braces, let's put our logic to grab the tags. We'll be using google.script.run to call our function from the code.js file, but before we tell it what function to run, we also want to tell it what to do with the results. So we'll have to chain on a method called withSuccessHandler. So let's start building it. google.script.run withSuccessHandler parentheses, and then another parentheses, options, arrow, curly braces. Then inside of this function, we'll use those options to populate the dropdown. Let's start by grabbing the dropdown from the page. So type out const dropdown equals document dot get element by ID parentheses quotes tag dropdown. Then we need to clear out any existing options, including that loading one, so we can replace it. So type out dropdown dot inner HTML equals empty quote. Now we're ready to loop through each of the options that came back from get tags. So type out options dot for each parentheses option arrow curly braces. Inside of this loop, we'll create a new options element for every tag. First, we need to declare a variable to hold the new element. So const o equals document dot create element parentheses quote option. Set the value of this option. O dot value equals option. And then set the text that will appear in the dropdown. O dot text content equals option. And now we need to add a new option to the dropdown. Dropdown dot append child parentheses O. After the success handler closing parentheses, we put dot get tags parentheses. So let's save and test it. Go to your form and refresh the page. It might take a few seconds. AppScripts isn't always instant, as we know, but after a bit, we should see the tag dropdowns fill up automatically with the options from our spreadsheet. Now that we have one dropdown working, the tags dropdown, let's go ahead and add the other two, one for meal type and one for protein type. We're going to follow the same step-by-step process. So let's go back into that code.js file. We already have a working getTags function. Instead of writing new functions from scratch for the other two, we're going to reuse that structure and just make a few changes. First, let's find the getTags function and copy the whole thing, everything from const getTags all the way down to the closing bracket. Now paste it right below. In the pasted copy, let's change getTags to getMeals. Let's also change the variable name from tags to meals. Now we also need to change which column we're pulling data from. Right now it's looking at column B, because that's where our tags are. For meals, we want to look at column C instead. So change B2 to B to C2 to C, and edit the formula to reference it. Alright, now we just need to do it for get protein. So copy that function again, and this time we're going to change get meals to get protein. Then we're going to update the range to pull from column D, and we're also going to change the variable name. So now we have three separate functions: get tags for column B, get meals for column C, and get protein for column D. Perfect. Next up, let's get into our HTML file to create the new dropdown elements. Find your existing tag dropdown, the part with label tags, select tag dropdown, blah blah blah. We're going to copy this entire block and paste 2 more right below it. In the first copy, let's change our label to meal, and then change both the ID and the name attributes from tag dropdown to meal dropdown and meal. In the second copy, update the label to protein type, and then change the ID and the name to protein dropdown and protein type. And alright, the structure is in place. Now we need to scroll down to the bottom of the file inside of our script tag, where we loaded the tags dropdown. You should see the part that starts with google.scripts.run with success handler. Let's copy that entire block all the way to the get tags part, and we're going to paste 2 more times below it, but still within that window event listener. In the first copy, let's change tag dropdown to meal dropdown, and change get tags to get meals. Now that block loads the meal options. In the second copy, change tag dropdown to protein dropdown, and change get tags to get protein. So let's save the file and refresh our form. It might take a moment, so let's wait a second, but we should see all 3 dropdowns populate with the correct data. Awesome. Next, we need to make sure that those dropdown selections are saved to the spreadsheet when the recipe is submitted. So let's go back into our code.js file. Find the order array inside of our add recipe function. So referencing our table, let's find the right places to add these names in the correct order in our order array. Now that we have them added, let's test everything out. Open your form and fill it out with some sample data. And hit submit. Check out your spreadsheet and you should see your new values show up in the right columns. Perfect. Alright guys, that is our dropdowns done. In our next video, we'll be working on dynamic inputs so that you can add or remove ingredient lines as you need them. And then when we push submit, all those ingredients will be saved to the ingredients sheet instead of the recipe sheet. Alright, if you found this content helpful, please consider liking and subscribing. It would really help my channel grow. And thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye now!